This meeting to order. Before we start with the orders of the day, I do want to welcome our two new commissioners. So excited to have you all here today. What we're gonna do is we'll jump into our items and then we'll have some time during announcements and meetings to learn more about you all. And we'll talk a little bit about the process as we go over this. So we'll start with the orders of the day, which will include the roll call. So we'll do roll call.
Chair Magana,
Present.
Chair Ramos. Here. Commissioner Banks.
Yeah.
Commissioner Westphal. Commissioner Abastida.
Here.
Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Mendoza.
Here.
Commissioner Rooney. Commissioner Seller. Commissioner McCrary.
Here.
Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
And we have one.
Awesome. Because we have form that does allow us to take action as a commission, so we'll move on to our next item, which is our consent calendar for our new commissioners. This is our agenda for today, as well as our minutes from the last meeting. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve items 2A and 2B. Do we have a motion? A motion, Commissioner Allen. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Banks. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, all abstaining, motion passes. We have approved our agenda and have approved our minutes. We'll now move on to item 3, which is the public record. Do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
All right, well then move on to open forum. Do we have any members from the public here for open forum?
Does not look like we do.
All right. So we'll move on to our next item, which is an information item, our grant spotlight. Specifically around educational park for our new commissioners. Before we jump into this, just so that you see, I am holding a mic. So when we get to the question portion and comments portion, we will pass over a microphone to you. Second, we will ask questions and comments after the presentation because we do have to open up the floor to public comment. So once we finish with public comment, then we can open up the floor for questions and comments. So we will then turn it over. This is an informational item, so we'll start with our educational part. Update.
I think that's just my story time for it. Well, tonight we're in the beautiful Educational Park branch and we are going to hear a presentation from our wonderful branch manager, Melissa Naglia. It looks like we have some of the team here as well.
Is it on?
Yes.
You can hear me, okay. Good evening, my name is Melissa Nagler, I'm the branch manager here at Educational Park Branch. It's my pleasure to introduce my library assistant here, he's our circulation supervisor. I invited him tonight when he expressed interest in getting more practice presenting in a more formal setting. So I'm happy to have Benjamin here with me. All right, he's gonna kick it off, go ahead.
Thank you, Melissa, for this opportunity and to speak in front of the commission and to everyone, welcome to our library. As you may have seen on your drive here tonight, Educational Park Branch is located on the edge of Independence High School campus. Our original building opened in 1976 in partnership with Eastside High School Union District. On November of 2000, voters approved of the library bond measure funding for 6 new branches that included Educational Park. Our new building broke ground in 2009 and it officially reopened as a new library bond library on May 18, 2013. It is 18,000 square feet and Gold LEED certified that features natural lighting, renovated energy fixtures, and a public art collection curated by the City of San Jose. We would like to recognize photographer Catherine Wagner, who created a dynamic architectural frieze that investigate ideas about knowledge, nature, wonder, and discovery. This frieze is installed on the ceiling walls of our library entrance and provides a stunning first impression of our building as you walk through the marketplace and browse our collection. The printed images are laminated to aluminum panels, and the source material for the photos includes trees, rocks, and plants originating from our very own Overfelt Gardens located across the parking lot to our right. Educational Park is open 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday. Our branch features a tech center with 25 public computers, free Wi-Fi, a device charging station, 4 bike lockers, 3 study rooms, and a community room with a capacity for 71 people. We are located at District 5 with Peter Ortiz as our council member and Jose Abastida as our newly assigned LEC commissioner. Our library staff includes 3 librarians, a literacy program specialist, 3 library clerks, 7 pages, and a library aide. We serve a total population of 55,344, with 56% making up our Asian community and 26% Hispanic community. English is the main language spoken at home with 28%, following Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese at 19%. As of 2023, the median household income in San Jose is $141,565. And average per capita income is $63,253. Our community is just below these numbers, with the median household income of $130,450, with the average per capita income of $52,644. 4 high schools and an adult education center are all located next to our library. We have Pegasus High School, Ace Charter, Independence High School, and KIC, San Jose Collegiate. After school hours in our building are lively, as students stream through looking for seating and places to study. Last fiscal year, over 110,000 patrons visited our library, generating a membership count of 13,000, and 83,000 library items were circulated at our branch. We implemented over 1,000 programs that resulted in an overall attendance of 19,000. This fiscal year, we are projected to surpass our usage data with our visitor count already at 88,000, circulated items at 46,000, and our membership count at 13,000. We have hosted 700 total programs so far, with our attendance currently at 15,000 at the halfway mark. And now I turn your attention back to Melissa to highlight our programs and services.
Thank you, Benjamin, for that. That was fantastic. So I'm going to now give a few examples of some of the programs that highlight some of that great data that Benjamin just shared with us. So as you can see, we're hitting all of our education and program strategy areas, doing various programs. And I'm just going to highlight a few of them. The first one I'm going to highlight is our collaboration with Evergreen Valley College. Thanks to the wonderful work of our family literacy coordinator, we have had 3 successful semesters of supporting language learners in our community. So our first semester, we averaged about 20 students. Our second semester, about 10 students. And we're currently in our 3rd semester. We have 35 enrolled. And currently about 17 to 18 people are in attendance. Okay, as Benjamin highlighted earlier, we serve a lot of teenagers. We are surrounded by 4 high schools, which shows that we have about 150 teens every day after school visiting us. We are right on the campus edge of Independence, one of the largest high schools in San Jose. So one of the things we like to do is really support having them in our library. We provide them study rooms. We work with the schools to make sure their textbooks are available to them in use in the library. And most importantly, we provide a place for them to relax and de-stress. Another program that we offer here is called Group Computer Assembly. So rather than just coding, we actually work with hardware. And we have attendees come in and take the computers apart And then we talk about the components, and then we ask them to put them back together. And the funnest part is when we ask them to start them up and see if they still work. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our amazing story times. On the weekend, we have music and movement, and we get about 100 attendees on the weekends. On Thursdays, we have our infant toddler story time, and we're averaging around 70 people each week. And as you can see, I threw in a Yelp quote there. The community truly loves us and appreciates all of the work that we do for them. And this is one of those unique programs from the Yelp review that they commented on. We have a wonderful outdoor space. It's dark right now, but outside we have some great furniture that was installed, and we utilize it to do sand and water play for our young families. As you can see in that picture on the right, during the winter time, we replaced our sand with snow, and they just had a blast. So I'll just end by saying all of these great programs and all of the work here being done by our staff here, seen in the picture, is also supported by 35 volunteers who have given over 600 hours so far this fiscal year. And with that, I can take any questions.
Let's give it up for our presenter. Questions, any public comment? We did not. Floor is open for commissioners. Questions or comments? I would say, wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Good job. And I think Educational Park is just another reminder that our libraries are more than just books, right? They're opportunities and safe spaces for our kids after school, play spaces for our kids, places for learning. So thank you for all that you all are doing and continue to do for our community. Let's give it up for our presenters one more time. All right, so for our new commissioners, that is an informational item, which means it does not require any action. So we'll move on to our next item, which is also an informational item, which is our library collections and technical services presentation.
All right, everyone. Well, we all know that the library is here to provide access to information of many shapes and viewpoints, and to share ideas with everyone. And the team that's going to present to you today is going to share with you all of the intricacies of collecting and curating a broadly available, well thought out collection that is interesting to the community and serves a very diverse and vast array of viewpoints. So you're going to get some of the insider knowledge of how it all works. It looks beautiful on the shelf, but you're going to learn how it gets there today, starting with how we collect it. So I'll turn it over to Sharon Fung, our collection manager, and they'll take the list.
Thanks, Ann. This is on, yes, okay. Thank you, Ann. My name is Sharon Fung, and I'm the manager for technical services and collection development. With me today is our e-resources librarian, Gina Clevett, and we're gonna talk to you a little bit about the collection today. Okay. We'll start with what intellectual freedom is and what it means to develop a collection and how we do that work. I'll share an overview of what is in our collections and how they are used. We'll look at diversity in the collection and the actions we take to make our collections more inclusive. Then we'll see some changes in how our collections are used and how we've adapted to them. And I'll review the budget for collections and how it is allocated. First, intellectual freedom. Why are we talking about intellectual freedom? Access to information is critical to upholding the rights guaranteed to us in the First Amendment. This is foundational to all our work in collection development and is present in all the decisions we make. Intellectual freedom is the right of every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. It provides for free access to all expressions of ideas through which any and all sides of a question, cause, or movement may be explored. Intellectual freedom gives people the right to think for themselves. It respects individual dignity and self-rule. This freedom allows people to form their own ideas and opinions by questioning the world around them. Privacy is required for true intellectual freedom. We apply intellectual freedom to our daily work by ensuring that every member of the community has access to a vast array of ideas and information. All our library values apply in each interaction with the community. We don't restrict access to any library materials or apply judgment to any request for information. Within the larger library community and our country as a whole, challenges to library materials have been big news. Fortunately, at San Jose Public Library, our ability to provide all types of materials to our customers has long been a part of the city's council policy, which adopted the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights as the foundation of our work back in 1971. The importance of intellectual freedom was reemphasized again this year when the California Freedom to Read Act was signed into law. This law requires all libraries within the state to maintain a collection development policy that upholds intellectual freedom. The city's council policy and our library's collection development policy have made the importance of intellectual freedom to our work very clear. And these policies together guide, protect, and shield our collections for access by our community. The collection development policy shares the core tenets of our work, from selection to ongoing maintenance. The city's council policy outlines the guiding principles for the library collection. And ensuring the privacy of library users to feel confident accessing library materials is a huge part of the privacy policy. And while the library has many policies, there are some more directly related to our work in collection development. The author and publisher submission policy is one of these, and it ensures a path for authors and publishers to submit their work for consideration to add to the collection. So what is selecting? It is an art and a science. Finding what the community wants and needs. We learn who the community is through census data and national library usage trends. Selectors have access to tools like Policy Map that you see an image from here showing the density of population under the age 18. Once we know who we are serving, how do we decide what to buy? Our collection is built and informed through customer input. We get this input in the form of circulation, what checks out and what doesn't, from the selector's attention to local and national media and social media, along with professional journals and reviews from purchase requests. And we get real-time input from staff working at branch locations, keeping us up to date on the types of material customers want. And now, what is in our collection? The first thing most people think of when they think of the library is books. And we have those, over 1.6 million of them. There are books in Braille for young children and books with a built-in audio player that we call read-alongs. Tina's going to show you one. We have DVDs and music CDs, magazines and newspapers, ebooks and audiobooks, databases with access to hundreds of thousands of articles and online learning tools. All of these are also available in world languages. There are 91 languages in the collection, and we actively select new materials in over 15 languages. And now that we know what is in the collections, let's find out how our collections are used. Children's physical materials make up 50% of the library's total circulation. And ebooks and e-audiobooks are 23% of the total. Some collections are showing a decline in usage, including audiobooks on CD for all ages, and children's physical media, DVDs and music CDs. Overall, 75% of the library's circulation is from the use of physical materials. That means our communities still value access to physical items and will come to the library to get them. And when they do come in, we strive to ensure that the materials they find will include those with a reflection of themselves and their lived experiences. We use a collection analysis tool called Collection HQ. Collection HQ is a powerful tool the library uses to assess and manage collection diversity. It is shown here in part. Our librarians use Collection HQ regularly to identify items for potential removal based on age or usage. Collection HQ also has a feature that tracks the percentage of our collection that has subject headings associated with diverse topics. While no industry standards exist for collection diversity, local libraries using Collection HQ typically report 15 to 20% diverse content when analyzed by this tool. This, of course, doesn't show the true diversity of our collection because it is only looking at subject headings. And there's more to diversity than just that, like the language of the materials and how the subject headings are applied and by who. This tracking tool, though, has been beneficial as a way to ensure continuous improvement, as you can see from this graph at the bottom. The diversity of our collection is also influenced by the publishing industry, but as a library, we can use our buying power to influence future publishing decisions when we work to make sure that our communities are represented in our collections. Cataloging plays a vital role in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion through the use of inclusive subject headings. This ongoing process involves adding new, updated terms and replacing outdated or problematic ones. Inclusive subject headings are important for improving material discoverability and creating a more welcoming environment for all users. Here on the right side of the slide, you can see what subject headings look like in the catalog. For example, the catalog entry for We Are Grateful by Tracy Sorrell demonstrates the hyperlinked subject headings in all catalog records, including the recently added term Indigenous populations. Over the past 3.5 years, 8,857 catalog records have been updated, enhancing access to materials through more inclusive and current terminology. And that enhanced access may reflect in part in our year-over-year usage. Over the past 5 years, we've seen circulation drop considerably during pandemic closures and then steadily return, as you can see here. Additionally, we have seen some changes in the past few years in how our customers are using the collection. Most notable is the increase in the usage of electronic materials.
SJPL's e-resources are a collection of subscription databases that provide customers access to information in a variety of formats. This includes ebook and audiobook platforms such as Libby and Hoopla, interactive learning platforms such as Mango Languages and LinkedIn Learning, and databases containing academic articles, newspaper archives, company profiles, and other multimedia. These subscriptions are evaluated in a variety of ways, including circulation, which is the number of checkouts, number of sessions, or how often any user logs in, number of items accessed, so that's content like articles and interactive courses, and number of unique users. The type of usage data available varies widely between vendors, which can make direct comparisons difficult. However, you can see from the chart that usage has generally increased over the past 4 fiscal years, and we are anticipating increased usage again this year. During the pandemic closures, there was a surge in interest in accessing e-materials and a 25% increase in circulation just last year. This level of usage has outpaced our budget, and we have actively taken steps to make sure that we are getting the most out of allocated funds for our local residents. We've made sure to take advantage of cost per circulation and simultaneous use licensing models when they are available. Our collection development librarians carefully consider how to allocate funds to balance both immediate access to popular titles, as well as maintain breadth and depth in the collection. We've seen changes in physical materials as well, with circulation physical materials.
Library collection usage tells a part of the story of our community. How library collections are used changes, and so too must our collections. Popular children's audiobooks on CD are no longer being published as much as they used to be in favor of the e-audio format. SJPL has begun the process of sunsetting this collection, no longer purchasing new copies, but continuing to circulate items we already own. Adult mass market paperbacks are also decreasing in publication in favor of the larger, pricier trade paperback format. Children's nonfiction continues to circulate, but the focus has shifted from a homework support collection to high interest materials. This shift also came during the pandemic, when it became less common for homework to require a trip to the library. And children's graphic novel availability has skyrocketed, with circulation outpacing children's fiction for the first time. On this slide, you can see that children's graphic novel usage is exponentially increasing, jumping from 300,000 circulations in fiscal year 21-22 to over 450,000 circulations last year. Other notable changes include changes to how demand is created. Book talk and celebrity book clubs are reaching people more and more. These social media phenomena have seemingly made authors come out of nowhere, creating high demand on older titles or generating unpredictable popularity. It isn't just James Patterson, Danielle Steele, and Stephen King that our customers are asking for. There are now unexpected spikes in popularity for newer authors like Colleen Hoover, Emily Henry, and Frida McFadden. And sometimes on books that were published years before. And these spikes far outpace the more consistent demand for legacy authors.
Demand for physical media formats like DVD, Blu-ray, and music CDs has been wavering depending on the age group. Children's DVD circulation sharply decreasing, and yet Lucky Day DVDs remain hugely popular. World language DVDs have become increasingly difficult to acquire as publishers have switched to streaming models. This is a challenge because many publishers haven't yet developed a licensing model to sell those services to public libraries. However, our electronic resources team has found and evaluated several available options. We expect to add one of these, the Shelf, to our collection this fiscal year. The Shelf features Spanish language, film, and television from around the world for all ages. Lack of availability isn't the only challenge. Increased costs and changes to licensing agreements further complicate our management of digital collections. We must balance surging popularity with ongoing collection needs, adapting quickly to changing demand while maintaining subject breadth. Demand is monitored through holds ratios. Print materials exceeding a 5-to-1 hold ratio are reviewed every 2 weeks for additional purchases. E-material holds, often surpassing this ratio, are checked weekly, but budget constraints limit fulfillment. In response, the collection development librarians are developing strategies favoring non-expiring licenses and affordable pricing for e-materials, but those are not usually available for the highest demand items. The effect of this high demand is felt directly by our patrons. Wait times for ebooks and e-audiobooks on Overdrive have increased by 11 days over the past year, from 26 to 37 days. These challenges require adaptive collection management strategies to meet user needs while navigating financial constraints and shifting demand.
Already, we have adapted to some of these changes. We've ceased purchasing new children's and young adult audiobooks on CD, while increasing investment in read-alongs to maintain accessible formats. Children's graphic novels have received a larger budget allocation to match their growing availability and popularity.
We've also adapted to new e-material licensing models, including cost per circulation and simultaneous checkout options to maximize our digital offerings. While ebooks and e-audiobooks are generally sold to public libraries almost as though they were physical books, as in we buy one copy and we can lend it to one customer at a time, some publishers are offering alternate lending models, and we are incorporating these offerings into our buying strategies. Several of our smaller ebook platforms apply the simultaneous use model to the entire collection. These include Makemake, which is a collection of, that's the wrong one, Makemake, which is a collection of Spanish language ebooks for children, and Bookin, which is a collection of Chinese language magazines, as well as Look for Kids, which is a collection of multilingual read-along children's ebooks featuring interactive components to enhance language learning.
In our physical collections, we've refined our approach to children's nonfiction, focusing on high interest materials and integrating science experiments with the main nonfiction collection. The Lucky Day collection has returned to its pre-pandemic status as non-requestable and not visible in the catalog. So when they are seen on the shelf at your local branch, they can truly be your lucky day. We've also broadened the scope of our home and garden collection to include home organization books, emphasizing visually appealing covers to attract readers. And there are more changes to come. The search for world language streaming media continues, and we are always looking to expand simultaneous use e-materials collections like Makemake. We will need to carefully assess shelf space and how publication changes affect this. For example, if we have fewer paperbacks, or if we phase out music CDs, or the usage of children's fiction collections to include more and more graphic novels. What collections should continue to be front and center? When you walk into the library, how can we employ more efficient ways of getting material where it is needed most, instead of just where it is returned? All of these adaptations mean an ongoing look at our acquisitions budget allocations. Let's start with how we compare with other California libraries. There are a couple of ways we compare our collection spending with other libraries. One way is looking at the expenditures per capita. Here you can see that our per capita spending is $60.23. We're about in the middle of the libraries we are often compared to, and slightly less than the $65.18 average spending of all reporting California libraries. Another way to compare our spending not shown here is looking at the percentage of spending on acquisitions as a part of the overall spending for the library. The acquisitions budget in San Jose has remained about flat over the last several years, while our nearby libraries have seen more incremental growth. Acquisitions makes up only 5.88% of the total library budget this fiscal year in San Jose, leaving us behind our peers. Expenditures were 13.75% in San Francisco, 13.35% in Santa Clara County, and 14.48% in Sacramento in fiscal year 22-23. Having the same budget year over year means we can buy less. Costs go up for the processing and taxes, and the materials themselves increase in price. In the last 5 years, for example, the average cost of ebooks and the audiobooks has gone up over $7 per item. And so, with that in mind, the total acquisitions budget allocated is $5.5 million. The partial tax provides 1.4% of this budget. The construction and conveyance tax provides the bulk at 98.6%. The acquisitions budget pays for physical materials, ebooks and audiobooks, electronic resources, processing costs, and sales use taxes. Here you can see the different age levels and categories of this year's acquisitions budget allocations. For physical items, children's materials are 16%, adult materials 14%, world languages 5%, magazines and newspapers 2%. Ebooks and audiobooks combined with e-resources in all languages make up 47% of the total budget allocations, leaving 14% for taxes and processing, and an overall 39% for physical materials.
The acquisitions budget going toward e-resources has seen some reduction in recent years. Some of this reduction has been possible because other funding sources have been utilized. But our spending on e-resources has not been reduced. The e-resources budget doesn't fund selected ebook or e-audio titles, but rather pays for the platform fees and the database subscriptions. To further reduce this allocation means removing entire databases or interactive learning platforms. An annual subscriptions almost always increase in cost from 3 to 5%, further reducing the purchasing power of this allocation.
Over time, we have made other changes to allocations as their demand grew or shrank. Children's books in Japanese and Chinese have more than doubled their allocations over the last 6 years. Korean print books for all ages also more than doubled in allocation. Conversely, Vietnamese DVDs has a reduced allocation. Now it's only 8% of the total from 1920s fiscal year, due to a steep decline in availability to purchase this format. This chart shows the dramatic rise in allocation for e-audio materials, more than doubling over the past 5 years, and the drop in physical audiobooks on CD allocations, reducing to almost a quarter in the same time frame. There are still ongoing needs to address directly through the acquisitions budget. Increased funds are needed for ebooks and e-audiobooks without further reducing funding to physical materials. Funding for world language materials in all formats will help library collections better reflect our communities. And there's an increasing need for accessible formats that don't require additional technology to use, like read-alongs and Braille. Where could we reduce allocations? If physical media continues to trend as difficult to acquire, both audio CDs and DVDs may potentially be a source of reduction in allocations. And now, what is upcoming? Special attention is being paid to the library's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. collection that's on the 3rd floor of the King Library. A refresh of the current materials and an update of the scope of the collection are underway. We will review collection placement in our libraries, as well as the scope and content of some of our featured collections to better align them with demonstrated customer needs and changes in the publishing landscape. We will continue to search for e-resources with world language content with a focus on streaming media and music. We will adjust our spending to prioritize those e-materials with favorable licensing terms. We're going to continue our focus on shifting patterns and how our customers are using our collections and the changes in how publishers provide content. We will do this by using data analysis tools like Collection HQ and Decision Center to streamline internal processes like our 2-year collection review cycle and the removal of unneeded materials. We will also use those same data analysis tools to better manage the movement of physical materials throughout the system, taking a close look at our floating collections. Thank you.
Before we open it up for public forum, do we have any public comments on the forum?
We did,
All right.
we did not.
The floor is open for commissioners for questions and comments. Commissioner Baker.
Say thank you for showing us that you into your internal processes. Really appreciate seeing all the level of detail of what we do. To make sure that we're giving everyone access to collections that represent the community, and what are we doing to make sure that our ebooks and that our, as you mentioned, those read along. That was my first time seeing a read along. That was awesome. What are we doing to make sure that those types of materials are available? Also, I appreciate you starting off talking about intellectual freedom. I think that in today's times, we need people to be bold and say what needs to be said. And it was just great to hear you lead off with that, being at the helm of what you're thinking about, make sure people have access to what we need, what they deserve. Couple of comments, and I'll get to some questions. The graphic novels, yeah, I don't know if everybody realizes how much graphic novels starting to look. Even like the Babysitters Club is now a graphic novel. Like it's a thing. Now I have questions about the subject headlines for tagging for diversity. You talk about, hey, we have our librarians over there on the ground, they're looking at the materials, also keeping track, making sure that we have good amount of diversity, whatever it might be, more diversity, age, race, ethnicity, gender, whatever it might be. I'm curious about how else do you tag for diversity beyond the subject headlines? Just thinking that not every single book is going to have a title that's representative of that community. And so in that data, as we talk about those internal processes, how are you tagging those materials for diversity? And then on the, I won't say customer, but for the library visitor, how is it that they are able to have access to that information, say, hey, I'm looking for these types of books, and are readily able to find that out as they're going through the library?
Sure, we do that in a couple of ways. The subject headings are pretty standard. The ones that Collection HQ uses are BISAC headings, which are I'm not gonna remember. Something industry. Anyone remember? Yeah. And that's the BISAC subject headings which are assigned by the publisher. And that's how Collection HQ, they have a set of subject headings that they search, and that's how that number is generated. But in our library catalog, we use Library of Congress subject headings, which are different. And those are searchable terms in the catalog, so Indigenous people is the one that I use as an example. You search Indigenous people, then anything with that subject heading would come up. And that's part of the work that we do. It's a manual work that we do every month, is to update those subject headings with more inclusive language, because they get outdated from the library contracts.
Following up with that, I imagine as an adult, maybe I would go in and search for that topic and find the book that I'm looking for, at least like the genre that I'm looking for. For the child, of course, it's going to be different, where they are going onto a catalog and kind of searching for a book that represents them, nor do they even all the time recognize the impact of seeing a character that looks like them, dresses like them, talks like them, lives like them. So my question is, in the placement of books, I know we can walk in and we'll see book displays of this is the book of the month, and you will have Hispanic Heritage Month, Black History Month, whatever it might be, and those books will be projected in a certain place, and even like in Dr. King, third floor, the snacks are there, and there's this clear opportunity for me to say, okay, I want to go find a mirror for myself, and I can go to that area, but then also, in general, when I go into fiction stacks, majority of those stacks for a kid, they're going to be a white protagonist, or they're going to be an animal, oftentimes, right? So how is it for that student to kind of find what they are looking for in that huge array of different pieces, and even for everyone to find those window opportunities when they're in those stacks? How is the child set up to be able to do that?
I think there's a couple ways. We're talking about intellectual freedom and the need for diversity in our collection, not only with you all, but also with all of our staff. Helps for our librarians and our library staff to make displays that reflect the people in their community. And there are enough materials in our collection that that is not the difficult thing to do. And it should be apparent in every library that you walk into. And if it isn't, I hope you say something so that we can fix it. And then another way is by creating book lists. And those book lists they're not something you would see necessarily on the shelf at the library, although sometimes, but they are built on our website as staff picks or as grade level book lists. And those, I believe, are all audited for diversity.
And with those books that we have had with these different attacks from Indigenous peoples or whatever, Latinx, in tracking the use of those books and their acquisitions, are we seeing that we are having students check out books in a proportion that would represent their community and saying like, hey, I saw this book and the characters really look like me, and I'm seeing the data showing that kids are pulling this book out. Right, it's great to have some of those books that we all love, but sometimes every kid needs to be the wizard, the captain of the underpants, if you will. So what data do we have that shows that we've made the books available and our kids are seeing them and they're accessing them?
We're just starting that work as a part of the Racial Equity Action Plan, which I believe Carla is going to talk about in just a moment. But we are collecting that data for a specific set of locations in sort of a pilot kind of way, so we can see how over at least 2 years that circulation grows in those locations and what we can gain from that information to make sure that we're really allowing our children, our customers to see those materials and check them out.
Other questions or comments?
Quick question. I saw, well, first of all the technology and the access really that it's giving to our families is just amazing. The work that you guys are doing. The readers that are going around, they're a lifesaver for me. I have 3 kids. So when we're reading, the one that's learning to read, he can, do that on his own, and I can save my voice. And same with my toddler. So I appreciate, all of this coming to our libraries and seeing the collections grow as we have more options. But I'm wondering about you mentioned the CDs and the DVDs going away eventually. Do you have like a timeline for that? Or is that just something that you guys are thinking about doing?
The only collections that we're actively sunsetting are children's books on CDs, so the ones that come in these containers like this, that are just the CDs for children and for young adults. And that's mostly because publishers aren't making them anymore. And they're certainly not making them in a way that would be meaningful for us to collect, because they're favoring that e-audio format. Because it's cheaper for them, I imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
But for DVDs, Blu-rays, in English, there's no timeline. People still love them very much. Except the children's ones, not so much. But the adult, the feature films, the main popular ones, what's the one that just came out? Oh, the children's one, Dogman. People still check those out. In pretty good numbers. And for some reason, San Jose, people love music CDs. We wish they wouldn't check them out. I think there's a good DJ culture here. They check out 100 at a time. So there's no timeline for that. It will just depend on the convergence of how they are provided to libraries and how much they cost and how we can get them and how much they are used.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I guess I misunderstood. I thought they were gonna be phased out eventually, like all of, not just the book ones, which makes sense. So
Not yet.
thank you for the clarification.
And we don't have VHS in there, so it does.
I was gonna say, yeah. as Many updates of the formats, there is the data that the team uses is so important. They really do look at, is there still demand? Is it maybe in certain neighborhoods? But I remember when VHSs were actually being phased out, and then you get this pocket of a community that's like, we only use VHS. It almost got to the point where I was saying it would be cheaper for the library to buy a Blu-ray player for a community member than to keep collecting. So it will get to that point where there's just, sort of, there's no sense in maintaining it, but they're keeping track of the data. So I think we're still collecting.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say great job on the presentation. I did have a question regarding the information or the data you presented on essentially the popular topics such as book talk and everything like that. What are we doing to implement those popular books or popular trends into our communities as well, into our libraries?
Well, we tried to buy the books. Sometimes libraries have to be careful about how much they market or promote, thank you, how much they promote popular titles. And Elizabeth and Nancy are here and they ask me all the time, can we promote the Britney Spears book? No, please don't. Because we can't always afford the demand that is generated that way. But I think there are other ways that we participate in that kind of work. So book clubs often mirror the celebrity book club reads. Trying to think if there's anything else that we do. That's a good one. But simultaneous use licensing models, so. I don't know if this is true, but for example, if the Britney Spears biography exploded in popularity and it was $70 a copy for one copy, one user ebook. But the publisher provides 100 simultaneous uses. We won't have to buy enough copies to meet that 300 customers on hold. But if we buy one set of 100 simultaneous uses, we can reduce our holds ratio and offer 100 people at the same time a copy of that book.
Those are ebook solutions. Another thing that staff does, just as a one stop. And on our website is when there's a super popular book, like the most popular, like Dogman, you know, the latest thing that's come back out is provide sort of recommendations that are similar to that title, but maybe lesser known. So like, so expand use into the collections. And you see that all the time. It's like, if you like this book, try these 8 other books where there's not a huge hold on them, but they're really good, similar types of stories, that sort of thing.
And then of course, Lucky Day, which I mentioned
Does
earlier.
everyone know what the Lucky Day collection is? I was gonna ask. I wanted to go into a little more detail on that.
Yeah, the Lucky Day is it's adult fiction and adult nonfiction that is the most popular top of the New York Times bestseller copies, and they are only for people who are coming into the branch. So they're on the shelf, and when you see it, it's your lucky day. I did check if there was a copy of Lion Storm here before I came, but there was not. So you can see we buy additional copies in Lucky Day. Those items are leased, so we can return them if the popularity wanes.
And people can't place reserves on them. So otherwise, if you have a really popular title, there might be all on the old shelf, but you never see one on the shelf. And the only way for you to get it is to get in the queue. And so this is that thing where for readers, they really, you know, there are certain patrons we have who, when they find that book, they're just so happy. They're like, okay.
I will say real quick, I was a beneficiary of Lucky Day one day. I came in and when First Lady Obama released her book, it was like impossible to find it. And I walked into Brand and I literally was like, oh my goodness, I can check it out. And I checked it out, was able to read it. It was definitely my lucky day. I could not find it anywhere. So any other questions or comments from the commission?
Well, I wanted to just thank you all for your engagement on this topic. It's so near and dear to our hearts. I did want to, you know, just invite if there are any other information about our collections that you'd like the team to look at. As you can tell, they're really getting down into the weeds and the data. This is an annual report to the commission, but we can provide information in time. So if you think of anything now, please feel free. Otherwise, you can let us know. I also wondered, as patrons, if any of you have any like pain points that you felt, especially around wait times for ebooks or things that we were highly attentive to right now. Maybe. And then lastly, I wanted to point out that the team brought a lot of information about our collection budget. And one of the things you'll notice is that our collections have long been funded through our capital budget, which is an interesting thing. And it's really out of necessity in San Jose. That was a source that we could use to fund collections. But it is not as sustainable enough to really meet the demands for resources in our community. And so we're going to be seeking other ways to fund our collection budget so that it can continue to grow. As you can see, it's been static for many years. Whereas other collection, you know, the cost of materials goes up, which means our buying power goes down automatically. And then on top of that, you have all these materials, licensing agreements and things like that. So that's something you're gonna be hearing about as we talk about our budgets in the next few years. We're looking for creative ways to make sure that that collection can continue to grow and sustain the needs of our community. Thank you guys.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? All right, let's give it up for Representative. As a reminder for the public, that is an informational item, so it doesn't require any action. So we'll move on to our next item, which is an action item, which we'll take care of after the presentation. This presentation is on equity and inclusion services.
They're getting set up. Most of you know, our chief of staff, Carla Alvarez, who joined the library as our first and has been the chief of staff over the past year. And I'll let Carla introduce her team.
Next stage change. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Carla Alvarez. Buenas noches. My pronouns are she, ella, and it's my pleasure to review our equity and inclusion annual report for tonight. I do wear the hat of library chief of staff, but I also wear the hat of program manager for system-wide initiatives, including equity and inclusion services. And so joining me today is Julie Black, who is a wonderful program specialist, and she will be sharing a little bit of one of our programmatic spotlights through later on in the presentation. But this report is meant to be an update on the last equity and inclusion report that we did a year ago. So I'll review some of the formatting and the synchronization that we do with the citywide department and tools to really frame our racial and social equity work. Unfortunately, we were having projector issues, so we had to move to a smaller screen. So I hope you're able to read the font. But for a bit of background, especially for our new commissioners joining us tonight, the city of San Jose established the Office of Racial Equity in 2020. The mission of this office is to embed racial equity practice and embody a culture that sustains it. From providing citywide trainings to departmental technical support, this office supports city teams in embedding the work in all facets of our city, shifting the culture and language to reflect these values and priorities. In May of 2024, so just a few months ago, the mayor and the city council unanimously approved the racial and social equity ordinance and the equity and values and standards policy 0-22, which codifies the city's commitment to a just and equitable San Jose. According to the policy, the city will have achieved equity when race can no longer be used to predict life outcomes and everyone can prosper and thrive. Equity can only be attained through the combined efforts of intentional, intersectional, equity-centered practices and culture. This policy thus fortified the importance of collective responsibility across elected officials, city administration, boards and commissions like yourselves to make decisions that move the city towards equity. Through this ordinance, the Office of Racial Equity thus also changed its name to the Office of Racial and Social Equity. The library works closely with this office to ensure alignment with these values and priorities, applying tools and coordinating reporting on our progress towards our benchmarks. So you'll see here that we use what we call a racial and social equity action plan, and through its abbreviation is EAP. So the library organizes and monitors its equity, diversity, and inclusion priorities following this equity action plan framework, which was introduced by the city in 2022 by our Office of Racial Equity. This area of work is often referred to through its acronym DEI or EDI. But as I noted earlier, language is a critical component of how we develop and embed our culture. So I will be naming each word: equity, diversity, inclusion, as reminders of what we're working to achieve and the environments we are hoping to foster, one in which everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered decision. The Equity Action Plan has three subcategories: normalize, organize, and operationalize. And they each speak to different components of how we make our progress. The normalized category is really looking at racialized experiences and disaggregated data. The organized category highlights capacity building actions and as a way for decision-making and program development. And then the actions under the operationalized category seek to understand, identify, and act on racial equity. So these action plans span 2-year periods. We just started ours in July of 2024. So this report will present on the first 6 months of progress. We have a total of 17 goals that we've identified at the library. And so we will get to see some of the highlights in our progress so far. Something that was just completed at the end of the calendar year in 2024 was now an online dashboard that was developed by the Office of Racial and Social Equity that includes all of the department's action plans. So I actually included a hyperlink if you would like to see it. There are 4 different views, and you'll able to see the progress on each of these action items. And in fact, by going into this section of the website, you can go and read each one of the department's full action items and their goals and their benchmarks. On any given day, the library is likely to be hosting a program, engaging in a staff meeting, or developing a resource that develops our equity approach. For the purposes of this exercise, and being able to synthesize a lot of this really important work that happens every day, we use a very high level, systems level reporting process for our report tonight. But we organize here at the library, and many of you have attended cultural celebrations or exhibits featuring special communities, like the Pinoy Town Rising, featuring Filipino American contributions in Santa Clara Valley. And then just prior to this presentation, our collection team really looked at how we're really thinking critically about the books and the resources that we offer. So there are many facets and elements that the library is continuously looking at the way in which we can deepen and advance our equity approach. And so the projects undertaken by the library span diverse units and classifications. Staff were able to join equity working groups, which meet throughout the year. As this table outlines, we have teams that work on racial equity, LGBTQ+ community, disability access, and community engagement. The projects and teams are supported by a program manager, a department language access liaison, and a department accessibility coordinator, who carry out additional technical duties, including citywide coordinating meetings and trainings and other special projects. Under our normalized category, we have 5 main actions that are in progress for this fiscal year. So this includes trainings on equity priorities, including a workshop on homelessness and the intersections to race, gender, and sexual orientation, by our partner, People Assisting the Homeless, or PATH, as it's well known. And this workshop is offered to staff of all classifications during the library's MiniCon, which is our annual professional development conference hosted in the fall. The workshop was at max capacity, filled room, receiving an 85% satisfaction rating from staff. And we are looking now forward to working with Asian Americans for Community Involvement, or AACI, for a presentation on their work this spring for all staff. The city also rolled out a training on the foundations of racial equity, which was required for all benefited staff. 99% of the library workforce completed it, and all new employees must complete it within their first 90 days. The library also launched Fines Free for all this year, and we are already seeing an increase in new accounts, specifically adults, juveniles, and teens. And after many years of advocating for the positive impact of Fines Free for all, especially among communities of color and other vulnerable groups, we will continue to monitor trends in library usage. Under the organized goals, we have our equity, diversity, and inclusion quality standards, which again, for our new commissioners, This is part of our overall education framework. That's part of our city's education policy 0-30. And so what these quality standards do is provide the framework to evaluate program quality and advancements towards equity. And these standards include an assessment tool to identify best practices and opportunities to enhance opportunities and learning. And as part of our process, the pilot, the library assessed 10 additional adult programs, with now a total of 14 programs that have been assessed, and working with staff to support them in completing the assessment and identifying improvement plan areas. And this year, the library also worked with select city departments to test the assessment among other projects in the city. And we will delve more deeply into this in just a few slides. And lastly, under our operationalized goals, we continue to diversify the programs planned at the library to reflect our diverse community members, including key cultural celebrations like Lunar New Year. But we also have featured dance troupes and arts and crafts groups. And our team is working to conduct programming gaps analysis at every branch to identify opportunities to align with local neighborhood needs and priorities. This past year, working with the city's Office of Racial and Social Equity, staff expanded to encompass language access and disability affairs as citywide priorities. And so our department designated staff to serve as coordinators to support these projects as they evolve over the coming 2 years. And then during the fall 2024, as I mentioned earlier, the library piloted the equity, diversity, and inclusion quality standards through an assessment tool at 3 city departments. We worked with the Energy Department, the Office of Economic Development, and Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. And they each selected a different program to assess. So for energy, their disconnection mitigation program was looking at households impacted by economic vulnerability and at risk of losing access to public utilities. And so as part of their evaluation that they used through our assessment, they identified an improvement area to collaborate with more city departments and other nonprofits to make sure even more people are aware of the services that they do to connect people to additional public services so that they don't lose access to public utilities. For Office of Economic Development, they have a special storefront grant. So is really to activate the ground level small businesses in key areas around the city. And so these grants are available for up to $10,000. And so through the assessment, they found that they needed to modify some eligibility criteria to make sure that more small businesses were able to take advantage of this, not just people on a 5-year lease, but also considering businesses that were maybe on a month-to-month lease. And so making sure that was more available for businesses. And for our senior nutrition program, which is really supporting folks in our elderly communities, after taking the assessment, they saw an opportunity to implement additional staff trainings on bias, systemic racism, power, and oppression. And so what these teams will do for the next 10 months is to actually commit in developing additional action plans. And then in the fall of later this year, they will take the assessment again and see what changes came about of it. So we'll be working very closely with our Office of Racial and Social Equity now, who will now take over the technical support and continue to work with not only these departments, but additional departments to continue rolling out the citywide implementation. And then library will work in conjunction with them to make any adjustments to the tool and make sure we're integrating that into the overall assessment. And now I get to pass it on to Julie.
All right, so we're highlighting My Connect Us here, which is a part of our Holistic Library Initiative, which was funded since fall 2021. The Holistic Library Initiative, or HLI, supports people experiencing homelessness through formalizing the library's overall support system and engagement techniques for community members with unstable housing. In June 2023, the library became a contributing department of the city's homelessness leadership team, which developed the city's community plan to end homelessness, which was adopted by council January 9th, 2024. And then in December 2024, the HLI program received a grant from the housing advocacy nonprofit Destination Home for the MyConnect SV at SJPL pilot. The MyConnect SV online tool is Santa Clara County's secure customer web-based portal that's linked to the county's homeless management information system, or HMIS. This tool was created with input from the Lived Experience Advisory Board, all comprised of members of the community that have lived experience of homelessness. For those that have created accounts with MyConnect SV, it offers individuals experiencing homelessness direct access to their HMIS records and facilitates improved communication with service providers. It boasts features such as a messaging center, document uploading, and real-time updates. And beginning this spring, 2025, the MyConnect SV at SJPL project will support greater access to affected community members by establishing dedicated computer kiosks that are available at key library locations for people to access their accounts. When engaging with community members or service providers, access to reliable internet and digital devices has often been noted as a significant barrier towards various goals related to achieving housing stability. By providing these kiosks, we hope to alleviate some of these barriers. I'll pass it back to Carla.
So looking ahead, for the completion of the full 2-year cycle, the work of the Office of Racial and Social Equity continues, particularly along language access and disability access. Our library staff will be attending additional coordination meetings citywide and identifying the additional special projects that are going to come as a result of these convenings and the needs identified at the departments. And we will continue to update our equity action plan to reflect those changes. So you'll receive even more information at the next annual report. But continuing with our equity, diversity, and inclusion quality standards for adult library programs, it will be a key part of the next stage of our pilot. So every single library location will be choosing an adult library program to be assessed. And now we will really fully start deepening in the work and talking through the enhancements for the library programming areas. The library also looks forward to supporting the citywide pilot with the Office of Racial and Social Equity, and as they continue to roll out the citywide assistance. And our staff equity working groups will continue to develop key trainings on equity topics, including an upcoming training that will be available for interested staff on sexual orientation and gender identity, and additional trainings on disability access. And so that will be continued to be underway and rolled out, developed internally by our groups. But last but not least, we're looking forward to launching the MyConnect SV at SJPL pilot, and continuing to remove the barriers for people who are experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity, especially as a coordination with the county and our housing department colleagues. And so this concludes our presentation for today, and we welcome any questions that you may have.
Let's give it up, representatives. Before we open up the floor to questions and comments, do we have any public comment?
We do.
As a reminder, folks, you'll have 2 minutes for public comment. We will have, the timer will pop up on the screen.
So much. I came here to see this presentation as a model of what's happening in public sector. So I'm really excited to hear progress. It seems like you're in emergent state. So so much has been done. I'm excited about it. I feel like this makes me feel like a happy San Jose and something to be hopeful for in a very heated time. Am I allowed to ask a question or just name a curiosity?
That's a question.
The curiosity that I have is, maybe you don't have to answer this because you do have staff in the room, but if you could name any anecdotal shifts in mindset that you see in staff or in practices, either intended or unintended.
Do you have any other public comment? If not, then we'll open up to questions and comments.
We do not have any other public comment.
All right, we'll start off with the first question is, do you have any anecdotal information?
Thank you for the question. Yes, actually, to clarify, this is our second equity action plan. We've already completed a 2-year equity action plan that concluded in June of 2024. And that action plan had 14 different action items, including a survey that we did on various staff that were participating in our action groups. And some of the testimonials that they had shared in those surveys reflected just an additional dimension of belonging and opportunity to connect with other peers, especially if they haven't necessarily, they might not have people that identify in the same way in their particular location. They can connect through these meetings to the system-wide colleagues and thinking about putting their interests and observations into projects where they can start to see some tangible changes. So some of the examples of the projects that we've had in the past have been reading lists, more inclusive reading lists, to do more cultural celebrations, to offer spaces for dialogue and discussion and camaraderie. Julie is also part of many of our groups, and just the additional camaraderie and sense of belonging that having these dedicated spaces, which is part of their staff time, is very, very meaningful. And we also simultaneously have seen people now be more, when they're doing their programming prioritization, because they've been able to see other teams do programming for various different celebrations or observations or programming, they then connect with each other. How did you do that? What partner did you work with? And then they replicate it at additional locations. So we are seeing more and more diverse representation and inclusion for many different of our facets in our collection and our programming area and on our staff working spaces. And we'll continue to do the survey again next year. So we take a year off and we'll do the survey again to get another touch point check with staff.
And if I could brag a little for Carla, because she won't, embedded in this presentation was the equity, diversity, inclusion, quality standards that were adopted by City Council, developed by a cross-sector team led by Carla and others. And, she included in there that she and her team has actually worked with other city departments. While the, concepts of equity, diversity, inclusion have been integral to the library for so long, really this work has given us, as Carla started off with, the language to deepen our understanding and to really connect, and especially in some difficult times. So internally, it's been really meaningful, but some of these other departments were really somewhat intimidated by taking on this work. It isn't as integral to their day-to-day work. And so Carla actually worked with them to develop their first race and social equity action plan in some cases. And now that work is transitioning over to the Office of Race and Social Equity, but really it started with Carla and the team and some of the departments where it was new to them, it was less comfortable, and really helping them to sort of build that comfort and move forward. So I think that we're really proud of your work, Carla.
And the work has already been happening. So even working with the teams, they would see a terminology like anti-racism, but then we would ask them, well, explain a little bit more about your program. I was like, actually, that practice, that's part of anti-racism. That what you did to outreach with these particular, that's inclusive outreach. And so it's also helping people identify the best practices that are already.
Floor is open. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Bacon?
It's been proud to be listening to Roseanne. Really appreciate this work. I did not know all this was happening across our city. It's such a privilege to live here, especially in these times. So thank you for everything that you're doing, making me feel comfortable and safe and proud to live here. And I want to go to that slide that you have, EAP normalized. And I'm on the third row down, collect and review equity, diversity, inclusion, subject data through a data analysis tool. Updates top circulating languages, Chinese, Spanish, Japanese, Indian languages. Question about the circulating languages, are those in the adult stacks? Where are we seeing that traffic? And then I'm curious about what other data is being collected in that tool beyond the diverse languages.
So
So the languages are, any of the books that appear with that tagged with that language, so it could be also children's books and adult collections. We're specifically as part of this equity action plan to start really hyper localizing, how we might begin to do deeper analysis of our collection and our usage. We're starting with Biblioteca Latinoamericana, Joyce Ellington, and Tully, because we know there's a lot of linguistic diversity. What we've already noticed so far is, so we're tracking language usage over time around that. And I think your question also was good feedback for me as I think about deepening and expanding on our equity action plan about dividing it by different target populations and really trying to do a more distilled analysis for the next report. And we're also looking at subject headers through the collection HQ tool. So what we've seen so far just on these 3 locations is, for example, at BLA, some of the top 3 subjects that have been checked out are anything that's tagged Hispanic Latino, mental and emotional health, as well as equity and social issues at large. At Joyce Ellington, we're seeing almost the same, basically the same, but in different priorities. And at Tully, we're seeing mental and emotional health, equity and social issues, and then materials with the subject of Black. So that will continue to deepen and kind of look at additional subject areas that people are most interested in and how that relates to the population data that we know.
Thank you. I'd love to stay up there and keep asking about that stuff.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I'll quickly, I know in my work around educator diversity and workforce development, the top 3 contributing factors to retention are compensation. The other 2 are professional development, as well as folks having a voice or being seen or feeling connected to their community. I don't have that, obviously, that research or that data specifically for our library, but I'm curious how this work might tie to retention levels for our staff. And we can even see that there's, it's weird using ROI in this space, but seeing that folks are staying with us and proud to work with us, just, I think, in my opinion, emphasizes the importance of this work. I'm curious, how do we handle pushback in terms of, potentially like misplaced anger regarding drag reading, or we've seen the Moms for Liberty items come out. How do we handle those types of scenarios?
Well, the library is for all, and that means all opinions, of all kinds and flavors, because this library really is meant to be for every person. And so we also emphasize the freedom of choice. You don't have to come to our program if you don't want to. You can select your own books that you want. You can consult a librarian for support on recommendations on your interested area of topic. But really to truly be that library for all is to include the range of considerations, adaptations, tools, and approaches to really deliver a high quality experience and access across our very many customers in our diversity of San Jose. And so we will continue to ensure that access to resources, knowledge, and materials means reviewing and removing barriers to anybody so that libraries are at the reach of all of your residents.
Well, other questions or comments? All right, y'all, this does require actions. So I'm going to entertain a motion that the commission receives the update on the equity and inclusion services report. I have a motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, all abstaining, motion passes. We have to approve the report. Let's give it up for our presenters one more time. We'll move on to our last item under item D, just discussion action items, which is an action report, which is adopt our annual commission budget position message to the council. My favorite meeting.
All right, good evening, everyone. So every year we convene a budget ad hoc subcommittee to deliver a budget position memo. So we just want to say thank you for the time and commitment to put this one together this year. I'm actually going to turn it over to Commissioner Banks if you still want to walk through the priority items, and then we'll open it up to the full commission for any questions.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So in terms of us trying to figure out how exactly we wanted to focus on our priorities this year. We looked at a lot of data, a lot of information from previous commissioner meetings were taken into account. Additionally, in our previous commissioner session, we did a commissioner priority survey where we had the opportunity to share about our own individual priorities and then see what our rankings were. In addition to that, we looked at community needs, policy alignments, what was happening with city strategies on like economic mobility, digital equity, as well as public safety. And then obviously just our program participation, facilitation, facility needs and resident feedback. So as you can see in our budget memo, the 5 priorities that we are looking at this year is 1, sustaining digital equity and technology access. We know that we have about 1,500 residents that lack reliable access. And then with the ending of the SJ Access Hotspot lending program ending last year, we know that that also leaves thousands of individuals without affordable home internet. And then we are looking to invest more of public Wi-Fi and our digital literacy programs. And so that was one thing that we for sure wanted to continue to focus on. Additional to that, our second priority was strengthening workforce development and career pathways. This is continuing the work that we're doing at SGA PL Works, Resilience Course Learning Program pathways, and our college and career pathways. And so with looking at the work that the Youth Commission put together, they did a priority survey, specifically the Youth Commission's 2025 priority survey. And in that, there was a lot of interest in looking at making sure that our youth and community were career ready. And so continuing to prioritize that, the Youth Commission ranked career readiness as one of their top concerns, especially as youth are emerging from that high school and transition into college, thinking about what their futures are going to be like. But then also thinking about non-traditional pathways into professional experiences. And so we wanted to continue to focus on that. Our third priority was maintaining library infrastructure as well as public safety. And so making sure that we remain safe, well-maintained and accessible libraries across 7 days a week. There's a lot of work being done in terms of making sure that we were hiring staff for security, as well as looking at rotation for that, with Sunday hours being extended. A lot of time that left our staff stretched thin across support. And so we wanted to make sure that we were highlighting that, maintaining having security staff, as well as just as much as technology upgrades and facility maintenance was also a priority for us this year. Continuing on. We wanted to continue to invest in access to library services, as well as collections. As we've seen today in the presentation, we know that we aren't investing as much as we can within our collections, especially when it comes to DEI and making sure that we have a collection source that is reflected to our community and their needs and their desires. And so we wanted to continue to uplift that. And then finally, looking at the library as a community for learning as engagement. We know that the library isn't just about books, as I was said also tonight. And we wanted to make sure that as we expand early education support programs, youth engagement initiatives, and out of school learning, that all of these opportunities still align with the San Jose's education policy and children and youth master plan. So taking all of this into consideration, we were able to outline the priority budgets. During this time, we would like questions, feedback, and then I can answer anything that questions.
Before we open up to questions and comments, robust presentation, love it. Any public comment?
We do not.
All right. Floor is open for discussion for commission. Before we do that, let's give it up to the committee. For all the work that they're doing. That's something we've been on this committee. It could be a lot of work, so shout out Commissioner Banks for everything that you did, for everyone else who participated. But floor is open for questions regarding the budget letter. And for our new commissioners, the process of the way this works, the letter comes to us. Hopefully we approve it, depending on what we decide today. It will go to the city council, and then from there is the process of the city council deciding on how they will allocate the budget. They'll have different meetings throughout leading up to the creation of the budget session, which we can participate in and provide our insight and thinking around on the budget. And then ultimately, the mayor and the city council will make the ultimate decision on the budget, and they do have some difficult choices to make in front of them. So I just want to give us that context. Open up the floor for questions or comments from the commission. Commissioner Allen.
With the $60 million. With the $16 million budget shortfall that's expected, are we also expecting not any pushback on the FEMA funds?
Thank you for the question. The city has projected a total citywide shortfall of $60 million. All departments were asked to look for ways in which that will contribute to saving city up to that amount. So we did not include reinstating adult bond, late fund in our proposals. Largely because the funding source that we utilized to find and negate the fine was the library parcel tax, which is our own funding source. And secondly, because we had not had late fines for the past year, there really isn't a loss to eliminating that. Does that make sense? We're not I think there is some projected potential deficit from monies that could have been collected. But as many of the commissioners know, one of the reasons we recommended that is that fines had really just become a barrier to access. People weren't paying them. And the amount of sort of quotes revenue that we were receiving from late fines had come down to being like less than $30,000 a year. Whereas it was actually keeping people away from using library materials. So just for that context, we did not propose to reinstate the fines. It could become a topic during the city council fines and fees conversation, and we'll certainly let you know of that.
Thank you for all your hard work. I look forward to the new commissioners volunteering for this next year. We all do it, so rite of passage. So speaking of which, when I was on the budget subcommittee, our biggest, concern were around reinstatement of library hours for this pandemic. And I think that it's important for us to make sure that we're direct with the council. So like this, everything here is perfect and direct, and we have all of the arguments, but like we should say to them, do not cut our hours, period. I would love for us to continue expanding, but whatever, I'll take not cutting, right? And of course, there are arguments as to why we have a 20% increase in visits. We were named number 2 most popular thing in the city. And I feel like that's something to be said, like we are popular.
So, I mean, say, and so I would recommend that we be as direct as possible with our city council, and mayor to tell them like, hey, look, this is what we need. Something in my conversations, and we will discuss this during my report, in my conversations with the advocacy committee, is that, you know, we experience reductions, we've experienced cutting back, right? And now you're starting, there's nothing left to cut, right? So let's just protect what we have and ask the council specifically not to do that.
Commissioner Baker.
Piggybacking with the question for that, for folks who are on the subcommittee in previous years, when we're thinking about what we've heard in the past from the city council, the top three things that they're going to try to focus on, for use beyond the hours, what else comes to mind? And then put them in a ranking order of what hours is going to be top priority.
Or is the question in pass-throughs, what were the areas of reduction? Yeah. The biggest challenge we face is that the majority of our general fund, more than 80%, is the staff that keep our libraries open in our branches. So when you're looking at constraints on the general fund, it's really hard to avoid reductions in library hours. So we've tried to minimize that as much as possible. So to answer your question, some of the other areas that we lost last year, for instance, in order to preserve library hours, included our makerspace shift, which was our mobile makerspace, which was wonderful that out to the community. The sort of other reality around that was that vehicle was getting older, was spending a lot of time in the shop. We knew that we would probably need to replace it, so it would become an additional cost. So that was part of the thinking of letting that go. And the staff who staffed that vehicle were able to go into vacancies in the system, and there was a savings in those positions. Then another one was that we lost the central office of our Partners in Reading adult literacy program, which I sort of at one point thought would never happen, right? But we were able to figure out a way to try to expand adult literacy services throughout the city, throughout the branches, and really leverage our system. So we're trying to be creative like that, but we're really getting down to where there are very few additional programs that are funded by the general fund, other than public services. But those are the types of things. The California room at the Martin Luther King Junior Library has been considered in the past. Trying to think. You don't, yeah, I know, she's brand new, but I'm looking at her. Sorry. Oh, the hotspots were eliminated last year. That's true. All the circulating hotspots. We have the grant program known as SJ Learns, which is a grant program we partner with school districts. And that's also in the general fund. That doesn't impact hours, but it's a highly proven and successful program that elevates children's reading level and math level by 3rd grade. So there's really, it's hard to choose. But those were some of the elements that have been discussed in the past.
Questions or comments?
If, I'm trying to piggyback on what. Angela almost said, Commissioner almost said, and I feel like we should be a little bit more direct. And I want to see if it's possible, or if it can, maybe, you know, see if it's beneficial to add what you mentioned about the commission's priority. I know we were the before early education commission, so I just want to insert, if we can, a sentence on that bullet point and say that because we have made an effort as a commission to work with the commission a little bit closer in the last few years. And just, you know, I don't know if it would help support that we are, like, it's coming from data, it's coming from directly from constituents and what they want. But it just is a general.
So we have two suggestions. Around youth commission, and then specifically around a more direct ask to council, specifically around the hours, correct?
If, through the chair, if there's a paragraph, the second paragraph in which it speaks to that they, library seeing an increase. It does say it's critical library funding remains fully sustained without reduction. There, you could add language in there if the, commission wishes to call out hours, or the committee could have that in there. Public service hours.
Other comments or questions? Thanks. Anything else that you want before I make a recommendation for a motion? All right, I am going to entertain a motion that we approve the annual budget position message with those two set changes. Do I have a motion? We have a motion, is there a second? We have a second discussion. Floor is open. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion passes. We have an annual commission budget position message. Yes, we'll be clap. Now, the hard way to start, so making sure we can speak to our council members about the importance of this work. Speaking of, we'll turn it over to another council member. Hello. Thank you for being here.
So one of the nice things about, being here, in person is that, there's nothing better than hearing from you. Honestly, there isn't. So I appreciate, first of all, I want to say thank you for your service on this commission. Thank you for your input and, thank you for caring. Because I think that, when I sit on the dais and look at we had a workshop and all of the things that, potentially, are on the chopping block, right? It's really difficult. It really, really is difficult. But, it's great to hear directly from you. Speaking of being direct. I can now relay the information. I was at a commission meeting and this is important. You will note on page, such and such, that it came, with a lot of thought and, it's important and, I think it weighs, sort of heavily. If one thing is considered and not another thing, it's a good perspective. So I thank you so much for that. And in terms of what I wanted to talk to you about today is the city budget, right? And that is, foremost in all of our minds and knowing that the city manager has told all of the departments, okay, if you're going to reduce, where would you reduce? First thing, I wrote down vacant positions is the sort of the pathway in which most departments go, because if it's been vacant for a while, can you move positions? Can you, move things around? And I think, but after you get to that point and you're not hiring anymore, it becomes even harder, right? So then you start thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna be programs, it's gonna be hours, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that, right? There's also a whole section of one-time funding, right? I think that one-time funding is going to be probably, last year we tried to put back a lot of the one-time funding, for example, like on activation like Viva Parks and things like that. I imagine this year it would be hard to really go back and reinstate that, right? Depending on how things sort of work themselves out. So it's gonna be a tough budget year, but I appreciate the letter that will be coming.
but I also appreciate hearing from you because it is something that I think is important to let my colleagues know as well. So, and I know that we have library users among the council members and perhaps the mayor. I haven't asked him. But I definitely use the library and I think I've been in a book club for 25 years and, sometimes, I think, oh, when am I gonna have a chance to read that book? But, we do find time because it's important. So I just wanted to let you know that we expect the mayor's March budget message to be released or heard on the council meeting on May 18th. So he will wrap that all up together. I am in a budget Brown Act with the mayor, and, other council members. And so, we will also be contributing to what's in the message. It is gonna be tough, but I think it's also going to be, something that we'll have to balance out. Those of you who may have heard about the workshop that we had, it's gonna be difficult. But, I also think that, yes, there was a shortfall this year, but we also have to think about how do we also grow the pie, right? And I think that there are opportunities to do that and help the general fund. Grow in a way that can be a little bit more sustainable. I think that the last 2 quarters, we had really bad sales tax revenue. I mean, there were low projections, and so it really kind of hit us even harder. But I also think that there are some works happening to also figure out, well, how do we grow that? The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and this is something that just happened, and considering that we're here in the middle of different schools, right? I sit on the Schools and Cities Collaborative, and most recently, we had a meeting on February 12th with the school superintendents of all of the superintendents in Santa Clara County. And there were several topics. We talked about public safety with our schools unit liaisons. What can we do for kids to feel safer, for faculty and others to feel safer, community to feel safer. We also discussed our Department of Transportation school safety program, which has been very popular. And the last thing was we had Zola Maciel from our Office of Racial and Social Equity come by, because one of the number one things on people's mind is the whole issues with immigration status. And in this day and age, we've reactivated the network, the Rapid Response Network, to be able to give information to families, give information to the schools, and on things that they can prepare for, they should know, and hopefully have that knowledge. I know the libraries are a great place to have access to great information, and so we're working collaboratively, also with nonprofits, to be able to deliver the message that it's safe to go to schools, it's safe to go to libraries, and in some cases, we learn that there's a declining in the days in which students are coming to school because they're afraid. And that's really, so we're kind of working on that as well. So the budget and the collaborative is what I wanted to report. There's any questions?
Any questions or comments for our council?
The City Schools Collaborative, I'm certainly hoping that now you are including teachers and also teacher association members. The last time I attended one of the meetings was when Chuck Reed was mayor, and he did not appreciate that as an association president, I was walking into that meeting. And I feel that you can't have a city schools collaborative without including teachers.
No, and I think that many of the topics that are foremost, include like the different schools and the teachers and others. We have not done a big, sort of meeting yet, but I think that is part of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for being here at 8:54 on a Tuesday. I know there's so many things you can be, or Wednesday, I don't know what day it is. Oh, it's rough. Oh, I just have dad brain apologies. We'll move on to our next item, chair's announcements. I just wanted to say welcome to our newest commissioners. Super excited to have you all here. Thank you for being active. And for us, thank you for our other current commissioners. Thank you all for all that you have done. I'm just gonna keep it there because I know we're short with time, so I'm gonna turn it over to our library director's announcements.
Yeah, thank you. Similarly, this was such a rich meeting. I want to thank you all for your engagement and to all the staff for their presentations. So I'll just add a couple of quick announcements. Our Berryessa branch is turning 20 years old, so we're having a 20th anniversary party on Saturday, March 1st from 11 to 1 p.m. And some of you'll know that Berryessa is one of our busiest branches, and you can always expect it to be a huge party. So please join us Saturday, March 1st from 11 to 1 p.m. And then secondly, we are having our Persian New Year celebration for Nowruz. Will be happening at the Almaden branch on Saturday, March 8th from 2 to 5 p.m. And there'll be story time, crafts, music, food, and more. So please do join us. And if you're showing up as commissioners, please let us know you're there.
Any questions or comments? All right, next item, announcements and meetings attended by commissioners as commissioners. So for our new commissioners, this is a space for us to share out any meetings, spaces that we've been to, or any announcements that we have. Any announcements or meetings from commissioners? I'm on the road tomorrow to New York. As always, I will be checking out my local libraries there, so I will report back what that is like compared to ours. All right, turned over to item B, which is Somerset Public Library Foundation Board.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, now we have a budget, a message, and I'm gonna give a couple of updates first and then a direct ask. So just a reminder, I think last month I mentioned that the Library Foundation has an open chief development officer position on their leadership team. Please share or apply. You know, we would love to be able to grow the revenue sources for our foundation to help all of us. We are a very strong partnership with the foundation and the Friends of the Library, so please get that out. Dawn has a new finance director. And I will say that, you know, she's like, that might be boring. It's not, because your finance director brings the money, so we love the money. So congratulations.
I'm very happy.
Yes, I'm in compliance too, so good job. And then our biggest thing is that we as the Library Foundation has, of course, an advocacy committee, and they've already started meeting with the council members. They've had meetings with District 9, District 4, and District 6. I think District 6 was today. Thrilled to share that our fellow former Commissioner Hillary Thorson, who lives around the corner from me, did attend and meet with Councilmember Mulcahy today. So I'm sure it was very fruitful, and oh yes, it was very fruitful. And my direct ask is that we have openings for people to sign up. The next couple of meetings are in the next couple of weeks. Next couple of weeks. So for District 8, it's Thursday, February 20th at 11. 10 via Zoom. On Monday, the 24th at 12:45 at City Hall is with Councilmember Campos. On the next day, we'll be with the mayor's office, with the mayor's budget director, and that would be at City Hall at 11 a.m. A meeting with our very own Rosemary Kamei, on, March 5th at 4 p.m. at City Hall, and then District 7, March 10th at 12:30 via Zoom with Councilmember Van Doan. So, we are also, for those who are wondering about their council member, we're still working on that. But you don't have to go to your own council member. It's very, important to make sure that you're saying, well, you appointed me, so I get to talk to you. But we welcome you to try and sign up for speaking to the mayor's budget director. Councilmember Campos is new, and you may find camaraderie with her. Our very own Rosemary Kamei may need to may need some advocacy, not really, but you can also say hi and bring her a treat. And so for those who are willing and able, we would love for you to sign up because we are a small but mighty committee and we need your voices. Great.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Looking for
Okay.
hands for signs up.
Cool.
We'll follow up with folks.
Yes, I will. Yes, yeah, come find me. I'll put you on the list. Okay, good.
Any questions? Okay, we'll go on to information and upcoming opportunities for commission participation. As a reminder for our public, if you go to sjpl.org, you can check out our program calendar there. We'll go on to item 11, items for future commission meeting agendas. Are there any items from the commission to add to future meeting agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to our next item, which is item 12. As a reminder, folks, our next meeting is March 19th at 7 p.m. Not at NLK, but at San Jose City Hall meeting complex.
It's our joint meeting.
It's our joint meeting with the youth commission. I'm really excited. All right, folks, thank you again for everything. Drive in peace, be safe. We adjourn this meeting at 9 p.m.